The chess speaks for itself. Big Hans is 2,700. Oh, he did it! He beat Magnus! The man beat Magnus. And he 2,700. Super GM. The man did. Look at it. It's live. It's live. He's number 40 in the world right now. Big Hans takes down Magnus. Right? Big shout out to Hans. Hans, my guy. Seen him grow up. And now he's 2,700. 2,702 on the live rating list right now after beating Magnus in this game right here from the Sinquefield Cup. We're going to take a quick glance at it. I was watching it the whole time. We had to drop something. We had to say congratulations to Hans. Absolutely huge. Of course, this is it. That man is 2,700. He is at the land of the Super GM. Here's the game. D4, knight f6, c4, e6. Knight c3. Letting the Nimzo happen. And I mean, as the player with the black pieces here, the Nimzo is very, 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 very strong. I've been studying a lot lately, but definitely been looking at some Nimzo lines. And the Nimzo really, you just don't have any problems as black. I just don't see that. So when I see bishop b4, I'm already, you know, like, oh, we're comfortable. But of course, you are playing Magnus. Then he goes g3, Catalan style. I forgot what this is called. It's like some Kasparov system or something like that. It was this the Romanosian Kasparov system. So Nimzo Indian, right? But okay, castles, and then we have bishop to g2. Let me actually turn this off a little bit, turn off that analysis so we can talk about the game. D5, right? This is all standard stuff you would play. D5, c5. You trade the bishop at some point. You also play a6, b6 sometimes. It depends. It really depends. The knight goes to d7. It can go to c6. It's very flexible. A3. Now, this is sort of like a, I mean, obviously the Kasparov system is something in itself. I'm not familiar with that from the white side, but it looks like just sort of a Catalan with the Petrosian type Nimzo in it. It's definitely a different one. Takes, we always take, we're never afraid to give up the bishop. So if the bishop takes c3, d takes c3, d takes c4. And he takes the pawn here and says, look, the c4 square, pay attention to this. This is huge. In the Nimzo Indian period, the c4 square is absolutely huge for black and white. But putting something on c4 is very, very good. Sometimes you put the knight on c4. Sometimes you get the bishop to c4. Right now, there's a pawn there. And also, if you do a pawn count, 3, 6, 7, 8, right? And then 3, 6 pawns, 7 for white. So down a pawn, we need to get this back. What does Magnus play? Knight f3 first. Development. C5, attacking the center. Very nice. So if I can break this up, I'm just up a pawn. Like, hey, you're going to be in trouble here. Castles. Pawn takes. Break it up. We still got the c4 pawn to worry about. He takes with the queen. Right, he takes with the queen here. Now, of course, queen takes is a move, and maybe just knight takes, but there's long pressure. Here it's hard to develop. Knight d7, knight b6 is probably a thing. Let's check the analysis real quick. Queen takes, and if knight d7, knight b5. Yeah, he's just all in the crib. Just very annoying. It's hard to do stuff, right? So Hans doesn't go for any of that. He says, okay, knight to c6. We're going to trade. And if you trade, you are down a pawn. Knight a5, defending the pawn. Knight b3, we're good. Queen takes c4. He gets the pawn back, but look at the structure. The structure is very important, right? There's a damage to the structure, which is obviously important. And black still has play, but white also has the bishop pair. So bishop g5 is a huge thing. Is going to be played here. Bishop d7, rook c8. Very simple play for black in a way. So he goes e5, though. With e5 with the bishop e6 intention, I like this e5 move. Bishop d7 is more passive, could be played. And also you may run into bishop g5 and like a rook d1, something like that. Super annoying. The files are open. I mean, there's space. He goes e5, bishop g5 played, h6 kick and get, allowing rook d1, because after rook d1, you move your queen, right? You move your queen? Not at all. Bruh. Not at all. Bishop to e6, that is a move for him, big fella. You hit my queen, I hit yours, same. So we go for a trade. Rook takes, bishop takes queen, takes, and then he damages the structure. So now black is the one with the damaged structure, but piece activity. Piece activity is huge for black. Now, of course, white has some piece activity too as well. But like rook b1, stuff like that. But for black, I definitely like it's equal. As you see, the analysis here is like equal. They like it slightly better for black. But I mean, you see the bishops on c4. We can also go rook d8 in many cases. The king can run this way. e2 is kind of hanging. It's initiative, like activity. Who is more active? And you would probably give it to black here right now, just by a little bit. Just by a little bit. The bishop's also on c4, and we have a pawn in the center, which white does not. So with these trumps here, and with these things happening, black is slightly better. But, of course, it's going to be a grind, and versus the grinder himself, Magnus. So king to f1, very good move. Of course, defending the pawn, getting the king closer to the center at the same time. Rook to d8, first to the file with a smile here. Looking good. He goes king to e1 to put the rook on d1. Get the king closer to the center. Knight a5. Intentions of moving the bishop, maybe putting the knight on c4, bullying this pawn, something like bishop d5, especially if rook d1, right? But I think that was played. Rook d1. You could trade. He did not trade, but there could have been stuff like trading. Move the bishop, but king gets there right in time. So after knight c4, king b3. There's knight e3 there, though. So a4, bishop c6, and king b3, right? So there's a lot you could do. But rook to d1, he didn't want to trade and allow Magnus to actually consolidate and get the king closer to the pawns. So he goes rook to c8. Very nice move. A bishop to e6 being a big thing. Rook takes, knight c4 as well. So knight goes back. Cool. We gonna move the bishop, right? Bishop e6. We go right back to where we wanted to anyway. b7 is not hanging, is defended by the knight, and your pawn is hanging. What does he do about it? Instead of going passive, rook c1, he did not play. Interesting. So can you not play it? Is it just a blunder? f5. It's just passive. It's just completely passive, which makes total sense. Now, of course, in a position or in an endgame, in any game for that matter, going for the passive way is not always the right way to go. And it's not fun as well because you're playing very passively. And c4, so he gives up a pawn. They have the saying, what is it? All rooking games are drawn, right? But this is not the case. The bishop takes c4, he takes it. Cool, I'm going to take a pawn from you, big fella. I am up a pawn right now. But it's doubled. But it's still a pawn. A pawn is a pawn. Knight takes, rook d8 check. King g7 and bishop d5. Centralizing, hitting f7. We want to go rook d7 next. So rook c7, stopping that. Rook a8 attacks the pawn. Right? Attacks the pawn. I actually personally would have went b6. I think a6, I didn't like rook a7. I didn't like rook a7. Maybe you just go rook d7. I'm actually curious. Here. And you just go f5. Or rook c5 first. Oh, yeah, because you have this. Yeah, rook c5. So, okay. So a6 play, rook b8. Obviously, trying to keep and hold on the pawn. And if knight c6, I take. You take back with the rook, I take this. You take back with the pawn, I have rook b6, forking. I'm going to get the pawn back, easily drawn. Sometimes even playing for more because you have the double pawn structure. f5 from Hans here. Rook to e8 and e4. Right, so we pushing the pawns. Things are moving. g4 happens. Watch this, right? Rook c5, he hits the bishop. Bishop a2, and here's the next chance. You see the engine's like black's just doing better. Of course, he's active. These are weak. The king is not closer to the center. I mean, it can be, but you know we can run across in some cases. This rook is active, so it is active. But we have two pieces that might be a little bit more active. We also have rook c2. This pawn could hang. We got passed pawns this way. There's problems. Knight c4, and this was the last chance. In fact, I remember looking at it from black's point of view or white's point of view when I was looking at the game. I was like, yo, Magnus, just take it, bro. Like, take it and go into the end games that he knows how to play. It looks like bishop takes, rook takes, pawn takes, king f6, hit the pawn, right? Rook h8, hit the pawn. The stuff is gonna fall, and you have to go into this with all rook end games being drawn, right? And of course, he knows that. But he didn't do it. He did not do it. This was his last chance to actually have any type of drawing chances. So after he went a4, which I think he just missed this move here, which is crazy to say. Not knight d6, the move after knight d6, which is going to be e3. If you go rook d8 and hit the knight, well, have a good night, big fella. Bruh. Oh my goodness. Get him off the board, right? Get him off the board. e3, bro, that's a strong move, mate. If you take the knight, it's mate. Get him off the board. Pawn takes, knight e4. Look at this. Look at your position. You can't move anything, really. It's pretty ugly, and I'm going to take here, right? This is just great for black. There's rook c2 stuff. I mean, there's so much stuff. Let's see what the analysis said. So it's plus 1.6 here, right? It's like not a lot, but it's still definitely much better for black. So going back to the game, knight d6, Magnus stopped for a while here after thinking rook e7. He wanted to do the same thing. In fact, what did he do? He took on g4. So now look at the pawn count. 1, 2, 3, 4 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Down 2 pawns. You think you're going to win this one? Oh, I mean, I know you're world champion, all. You know, but this is a tough one, right? Down 2 pawns, and Hans is eating up, you know, the rating ladder right now. So you gotta be careful. F takes g4, boom. Rook d7, which I like this idea because he says, okay, I want my rook to be on the 7th rank when I attack the knight. When you play e3, e3 was played very fast. If you watch the cam, he played e3 very quickly. Pawn takes, then he centralized the knight, allowing rook takes f7. But I have so much play, so much counterplay here, checking. But he didn't allow it. He just played king f1. I was like, wow, you could go knight g5, rook f5. I mean, there's lots of places you can do moves here. Rook check, rook c2 attacking the bishop. There's many ways, obviously, too. Let's turn the analysis on here, back here. Knight g5, yeah. But rook c2 is better. Rook c2, bishop takes f7. Rook takes e2. King G1, and this became a long game. Obviously, we got lots of moves left. Rook check, King G2. Here, maybe you just move the king around. You also have a check. He played Rook E2 check, King G1. Then he played King F6. So you repeat it. Bishop D5 centralizes the knight. Very nice, very nice. Or centralizes the bishop. At first, I'm like, shoot, Magnus is known for drawing these type of games, but look at how Hans was able to just hold this boy. Rook D2, right, put a pin for the win, very nice. Rook F7, I step out the way. You take the bishop, I take the rook. Very simple, very simple. Rook D7, we go back. Repeat, you want to draw? Not at all. Knight to G5, very tricky knight. Knight check here, maybe. Of course, with bishop, so knight G5, bishop to F7, check. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. This was nasty. This was sweet. Sheesh. Bro, the depth here. Knight G5, check here, takes, knight F3, takes. You have B5, you have the passer, and the tricky knight in the endgame you will take, especially with the pawn islands here. Pawn islands are 1, 2, 3 pawn islands. Black has 1, 2. Not enough. Bishop F7, he moves. You could just go back to D5, but he actually took on D2, trying to go into this endgame. This is just out. Check, takes. I mean, look at this. This is out. But this does take a lot of precision. A5, King E5. Wow, King G3, Knight F1, takes, E4. Let me go back here though. 4. Yeah, look at this is -8. I mean, this is ridiculous right now. Wow, E4, King takes, Bishop E6, King over, Knight C, Knight F3. Sorry, takes. This is the last part I saw here, and this was great. Because this is on a dark square. The knight is going to come around and take it, and then we just win with the 2. I mean, very simple. You didn't give him any counterplay. They got the knight back around. COE, calculation over everything. That boy calculated this. Got the knight back around to where it needed to. Take the pawn. H5, H4. I mean, that's it. And King E5, and Magnus resigns. That's it. Big Hans with the big boy dub. Crossing the 2700 club, bro. Look at him. Higher rated than Dubov by 0.3. Right? That's crazy. He closing in on Sam Shankland. On all the boys. Like, he 2702. Right? The lowest rated in the field with a lot of work left in this tournament. Congratulations to Hans. That was crazy. That was nuts. We want to see, obviously, more of this and see what else he does in this tournament. All right, guys, this is the end of the video. Make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next video.